Hi, I'm Brent Johnson, and today we're at Hope Evangelical Lutheran in St. Louis. With me is Matthew Janssen. You're the Cantor here at Hope.
Correct.
And this is an exciting new organ here. This is the newest organ in St. Louis.
It is, yeah.
This was just installed when?
We finished installation the middle of June, and it was about a month-long process.
It was June 2019, so yeah, and they came in and worked on it. We saw a little bit of this in the pipe organ encounter. The kids got to come up here and actually have some lessons on it, have some hymn playing lessons.
Play a little bit, yeah.
And had a lot of fun with it, I can tell. So, well, tell me about what was here before.
Sure. So the original instrument was a 1936 Moeller, kind of a stock instrument, straight out of the box, set up and left. And then in the late 60s, early 70s, there was some additional work. They added some pipe work, replaced some pipe work, cantilevered a few chests off the original casework to expand the instrument a little bit. And I think I've heard that there was a little upgrading to the console at that time. But then essentially nothing was done until we started the replacement process.
And well, tell me about that a little bit. How did that start? How did the church decide it was time to?
Sure. So we actually have letters and that to the board for decades of organists saying, this needs to be done. There's major work coming down the pipe. And we were very blessed about 10 years ago, maybe a little over 10 years ago, that we had two sisters of the congregation who, when they passed away, left a very large endowment to the congregation for the specific use of enhancing the worship space. So redoing sanctuary painting, and then a large chunk of that was designated to help with the organ.
So the organ was just one small part of it,
part of a
big project.
Bigger
actually.
project,
So,
right?
Yeah. So well, the room looks amazing. The organ looks fantastic. Who did the work then on the organ?
So the organ company that did the work is Parsons Organ Builders out of Canandaigua, New York.
How did you come to select them?
Sure. So
how did you find out about them?
Yeah, we worked with Scott Rydell, a consultant out of Milwaukee, just talking with him, and he recommended a number of different firms and that around the country. We visited quite a few of them, and when we saw Parsons instruments in their workshop and everything, we just fell in love with how they sounded, how they looked, how things were laid out.
And there's other one in the area that you've...
There's they have an instrument, I believe, over in Muscuda, Illinois.
Across the river. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. And now they've got two in the area. It's nice to see. So how much of the original organ made its way into this one?
A little bit. The principles on the grate are original from the previous Moeller. They were revoiced, and that to be just sound better in the space. The 2 2/3, 1 3/5, and 2 foot on the swell are original, as well as the 8-foot chimney flute on the swell are original.
But everything else is
new to the instruments. Some new and some.
Let's
classic.
start with that principle then in the
Sure.
grade. Let's listen to that a little bit. That's all over here on the left side from the console.
Yes.
That's all the grate up there, and then
all the grate,
the swell is
and
then
the
on
swell
that
is
side?
on the right side. Yep.
And so from there, then we have a 4-foot octave. Very clear. It's got some brightness to it, but it's not overwhelming or anything. It really fills the room well. All right, let's go on up from there, and we have a 2-foot 15th.
Sure. Okay. So we have.
And then from there, how do we complete the chorus?
So then we add in the mixture.
Okay, mixture.
Gives us a little brightness there on the top.
For 4-rank mixture, that's not very loud. It's not very
Right.
overwhelming. It just
Yeah.
kind of caps that ensemble and
Yeah,
gives you
so-
a really nice, bright, clear.
The mixture, the four rank mixture on the grate, I think is designed to be just a little bit of that kind of sparkle on the top, and then we have a 3-rank mixture on the swell, which really kind of gives that really bright Baroque mixture sound.
Okay. Well, and then what else do we have? Let's go back now. We have a harmonic flute at 8 foot.
Yeah,
Great.
it's a nice warm sound.
It is very lovely. I like it a lot. And then we have an 8 foot Gemshorn. Let's hear that. It almost kind of sounds like a small principal. It's got a lot of edge to it, but
It's got a little
got some
edge
fullness
to it.
into it as well. And then we have a 4 foot flute in there. So what's that called?
It's a Spitz flute.
Okay. Okay.
Have a nice little
Yeah.
light.
And then we have a clarinet in the, and that's here in the grate.
Yeah, it's in the grate, so it's under expression on the grate side, and it's from a vintage Hook and Hastings instruments.
That's a big, great clarinet.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until you said it. The grate is the whole grate under expression.
Yeah,
that's
both divisions are under expression, and we did that purposely just to be able to provide a lot of options with this instrument.
You can turn your accompaniment and your solo manuals opposite each other, what you're used to.
Yeah.
So that's great that you can, because that is a big clarinet, so it's nice to be able to close
It is.
down.
You can,
But you can
shut it
close down the
a little
whole great chorus if you want. If you have a smaller congregation, you just want a little bit of
you want to get excited with the choir or something.
Well, shall we turn on the 8, 4, and 2, just principals, and play something on open grate.
Okay.
Just close it down. It's very effective. I like that. That gives you a lot of options. And then the Gemshorn is also available at 16 foot. It continues down.
and up. So we have 16, 8, and 4.
Oh, the 4 foot Gemshorn. Okay,
Gemshorn.
right. Well, that's handy. All right. Well, let's go over to the other side then and talk about the swell. We start with a Geigen principal there. We have a little chorus here on the swell. It's a very warm principal. It's not quite as thin as I was expecting for a Geigen, but it's really really colorful there still. And then they have a 4 foot principal.
Add
for
the
that.
4 foot principal.
Lovely. And then we have a Nazard 2 2/3 and a block flute 2, so we're still on the fluty side.
Right.
Let's put on the 2 foot first. I want to hear that.
Right.
And then what happens if you add the Nazard? What do we get?
We get a little spice.
It's a little bit. It's not adding a lot of brightness because it's those larger scales.
Yeah.
We should add that. You do have a tier, so that probably if you had the 8 and 4 foot flute, it's more coordinated scale. But we do have a 3 rank mixture, as you said. It's very sparkly. Let me hear that with the 8, 4, and 2. That definitely serves to brighten it up.
Right.
So let's hear it all now with the 8, 4, 2 and the grate and the mixture. And then we'll add the swell to it, which we can add at 16, 8, and 4. I see you've got couplers for everything. We'll just do the 8 foot. I want to hear how that sounds. It's very full and
Yeah.
bright and clear, but it's not screechy. It's not loud.
Right.
It really fills the room really well, though. So.
Yeah, and that was one of the things when we were visiting that we really noticed, that you didn't realize how loud it was until you tried to talk over it, because it wasn't screaming at you.
Yeah.
And that it just kind of fills you from within.
Let's hear some of the other stops we've got on the swell. Then it's our principal chorus, and we've got an 8-foot chimney flute. Now you said this was the Moeller.
Yeah, so this was original. In fact, when we were starting the whole process, they asked me, what is your favorite stop on the old Moeller? And I said, well, if I have to pick one, it was the 8-foot flute on the swell. Right. And that, so they did a little revoicing just to kind of make sure everything was speaking together.
Sure.
And that, but other than that.
It's a very nice flute. You can see that being useful. You wouldn't
Yeah.
want to lose that. So, and then next up we have a solitional. And of course, it comes with
Add the Celeste.
Celeste. Yeah, very lovely colors there.
Yeah.
So if you had that Celeste, you could probably accompany, say, the great harmonic flute or the clarinet pretty well down below. Let's see what that sounds like. So it's nice to have that as an option.
Yeah.
And to be able to close the grate down and keep control of the volume there. So good. And then we have a traverse flute at 4 foot
Yeah.
as well. Very lovely. How does that sound with the chimney flute underneath it? Very nice. And then, like I said, we also can go on up and have the cornet, a 2 2/3 and a 2. Just play a little bit of that with all of those. This is our full cornet. Very bright, fills the room very well. What would you accompany that with if that was your melody?
Yeah, so most of the time I've been using a harmonic flute, sometimes 8 and 4 on the grate. The full cornet tends to be a little bright. Sometimes I change it up and maybe don't use the 2 2/3, but with full.
So that's with both boxes open. The great 8 and 4 foot flute is soft enough and that's bright enough to stand out against the cornet there in the swell. So that's nice. That's handy to have. And then take me through what reeds do we have over there in the swell?
Sure. So we have an 8-foot trumpet, which is then doubled at 16 and then at 4.
Okay, so it's 1 unit.
And then 1 unit for that.
Bright full trumpet there.
Nice trumpet,
I like
yeah.
it. And I should say that's available in the grate.
That is also
as well,
in
at 8
the
foot, so you
in
can
the
solo it
grate,
out.
right.
And so that's 16, 8, and 4, but we also have, what do we have? An oboe.
We have an oboe.
It's a pretty big sound, but again, you
big,
can
but-
close it down.
Right.
And you have that variety there.
Everything under expression helps.
Now, you also have an interesting stop here. It says flexible wind.
Sure. So the flexible wind takes off the regulation in the wind pressure.
Okay.
and that to give there's some thought that for Baroque works,
bounce
it gives
in
you a
there.
little bit more bounce
All right.
in there.
We'll have to experiment with that a little bit later. Let's go down to the pedal division here. Now, I assume the pedal is it on one side or the other? Or there's a lot of borrowing, but
Right, there's a lot of borrowing, but primarily is on this side, on the great side.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, let's just start with a 16-foot subas. We've got that down here. Big 16. And then we didn't mention it in the swell, a 16-foot Borden.
Right.
And my first thought was that must be borrowed, but is that actually an independent 16-foot Borden, or does that come out of the chimney?
It comes out of the chimney.
Okay, so good.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes
Yep.
sense. And then we borrowed it down to the swell. I want to compare the loud and the soft 16s there. More gentle,
Right.
But still fills the room really well. Then we have an 8-foot octave. And then is the 16-foot then available as the bass flute? Is that the same stop? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Pretty big there for the bass flute, yeah. And then the swell, Borden and Gemshorn are available.
Right.
And then we have a 4-foot choral bass, which I assume is the octave.
No, that is
or is it
actually
independent?
it's an independent,
very good.
and that comes from the previous molar
Oh,
too.
okay. Very nice, very clear, useful 4-foot there in the pedal. And then we have flutes and Gemshorns, and then
Yep.
the reeds are available borrowed down. Of course, we have a cymbal stern.
Cymbal stern, yep.
How's that sound? How many bells do we have? You know?
I believe it's 5 or 6.
We'll have to go look.
Yeah.
And then an interesting, unique feature here, you have a pedal-on manual.
Yeah. So one of the things was, do you want to prepare for this? I can play the pedals, but eventually we may have an organist that can't. So you can just register the pedals, and then whatever the bass note on the keyboard is,
So if
it will double in the pedal.
If you're playing like a 4-part hymn, just
Right.
the bottom note will be the pedal. So, all right, that's handy to have. If you have that person that's not ready to attack the pedals,
Yep.
they can still use the
Maybe
full
some
organ.
students or something like that someday.
We have nice modern combination action in here, so we have, I'm sure, tons of memory levels.
Yep.
And we have lots of piston sequencer access here, I
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
So we have arrows on both sides, both ends of the manuals.
Yep.
I assume that just cycles through the
Yeah,
generals.
so it just cycles through the generals, and it just keeps going. So once you hit the 12, it goes up to the next level.
Oh, so
you can just keep
keep
rotating,
going.
rotating through.
That's handy. And you got a nice display to tell you what general you're
Yeah,
on.
it's helpful to know where you're
Have
at.
that. Wonderful. Well, this is a fantastic instrument. I'm so glad the church has been able to do this, as well as restore this beautiful room. So this is a fantastic
Yeah,
thing
we're very
for St.
excited.
Louis here.
Going into the organ, we go through this door behind the swell here, and it takes us into the blower room. You see the blower and a static regulator. There's a filtered vent. There's a ventilation system between the divisions. There's our light for in here, and then there's a chamber light next to it. Going back out to the swell. These doors are really easy to open. You just pull them open. They're held shut through the clever use of some magnets. Right in front of us, we see the chest for the facade pipes. It has an acrylic front here so that we can see into it, and the action is electro-mechanical, with tubes going off to the facade pipes. Here it is in action. And underneath, we have this winker, a concussion bellow, a little mini regulator that has a little bit of extra air in it. And there's a valve inside, and that's how we turn the flexible wind on and off. If you want flexible wind, you don't want that working, so you can shut off the air to it. We also have this wind trunk that shows us that the wind pressure is 3.7 inches of wind, and a little valve there so you can open it up to check the wind pressure easily. Now underneath we have a large wedge bellow for the swell. It takes up the whole floor underneath practically, with the weights on it, and the chests are above us. Beneath them here we see the power supplies and then all of the relay and network connections. The relays are here in these cases, which have clear acrylic fronts, and they're really easy to open. They're also held in place by magnets, so it's easy to open these and get to anything you need to work on. And easy to close as well. Here's how we go up to the swell. It's a very well-lit chamber. And right here in front of us, at eye level, we see the slider and pallet action through the acrylic fronts of these chests. And with the organ wind off, you can see how easy it is to get into these just by opening these turns, and you're inside the wind chest. Anything you need to work on. Also note another clever use of magnets in the walkboard, so it stays open. Everything's laid out very neatly in here. There's our roar flute, rescued from the original organ. And the swell trumpet. And there's the oboe. And these are laid out in third layout, so we have pipes on either side of the chest in a V formation. And the 8-foot offsets are behind us. We see the mixture pipes sharing chest space with the 8-foot oboe. So you can get to everything to tune it very easily. There's traverse flutes tubed off up on an elevated chest. There's some amazing maple figured wood there for the swell shades. In fact, as a wood turner, I would love to have this kind of figured maple available easily to make things from. Here, they've made ladders out of them. I believe it's called ambrosia maple. Now we're up on the upper walkboard. There's the swell trumpet again. And here's a look at that roar flute. Then there's a walkboard up here, which originally I was a little confused by. It's got railings. Couldn't see how you get up there, though, or what you would do. Maybe for adjusting the swell shades, but I figured it out when we go over to the other side. So here's the grate. We have the same sort of door to get in, just held shut by magnets. It opens very easily. And we see a facade chest again with electro-mechanical units, and there's also some tubed-off pedal action there. The 16-foot subbase is horizontal on the floor. You can see the valves for controlling the volume of that. The upper end of the choral bass and the pedal flute are all underneath. And it looks like they had to cut into the room next door to make enough space to fit those in. We'll have to look at that. So we have a hatch here, takes us up into the grate. And the first thing we see is that hook clarinet, the mixtures behind it, the 15th, the 4-foot Spitz flute, 8-foot harmonic flute, and the principals in front. Again, our tierce layout, thirds layout, they call it. 8-foot of the clarinets directly behind us. And again, the flute, the concert flute, is tubed off and elevated here. There's those ventilation ducts that connect to the blower room to keep the air kind of consistent between the two chambers, if you can see. There's a ductwork with some wooden vents on it. Now, to get up on the chest, we lower the walkboard, and there's a handle to keep it from smashing, and also so you can open it again. And then over here we have the ladder. Now I figured this out. So it's got little pegs. You can connect it to the chest. There's holes on that side as well that allow you to climb up onto the chest. And I believe you can use it to get up to the top, where we find the cymbal stern and the chimes. And I guess you can take the ladder over to the other side for the same thing. And the main purpose for that is to be able to tune those facade pipes. You can reach the scrolls on the back from this lever. So that's why we have those up there. Now it all makes sense. And we go back up through the great walkboard. And down into the pedal. Great door closes, and if we go into the hallway here, we'll see this is the little room they had to cut into. It looks like it was indeed a coat closet, because there's some hooks still on the wall, and the top end of the pedal 16 is sticking in through here. Everything in this organ is very well lit.
Well, thank you, Matt Janssen, for showing us this wonderful 2019 Parsons organ, the newest instrument in St. Louis. It's wonderful to hear. I'm sure the church is very proud of it, I hope.
Yes, they are.
You've got a lot of new sounds that weren't here before.
Right.
Have they responded, do you think? Has that been an interesting?
Yeah, it's been great to get the feedback from the congregation, and the best place to be is sitting here on the bench on a Sunday morning listening to the congregation sing along.
I can imagine. Now, you've been through the process of building a new organ. What are some things you've learned that you would tell someone who's got to face the same situation?
Sure. Take your time. For us, it was almost a 3-year process from this time we started looking into firms to the completion date. But just try to find something that's going to work for your situation. And we really wanted an instrument that was able to play the Lutheran repertoire and lead hymn singing and just had a few goals of what we wanted, and then fit those in with the builders.
The organ dedication still is yet to happen.
Yes.
Tell me when that's happening.
Sure. Friday, October 4th at 7:30. We're hosting Christopher Houlihan as our dedication recitalist that evening to put the organ through its paces.
Wonderful. So if you're watching this before October 4th, 2019, come hear Chris Houlihan at 7:30 in the evening that Friday night. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic concert.
We're looking forward to it.
Well, thank you for showing us this wonderful organ. It's great to hear it. Remember, for streaming classical organ music 24 hours a day, you can visit our 3 streaming stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and The Organ Experience. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe below and consider becoming a sponsor of the Organ Media Foundation. You can do that by going to organ.media and clicking on support. Thanks for watching. I'm Brent Johnson. I'll talk to you next time.